Okay.
All right. Okay.
So actually, we let's do this a little bit out of order. I had intended that Dennis would give a little uh, commentary about the group and why we get together and that sort of stuff. But let's hold on to that, right, Dennis? And let's go through the introductions. And as more fellows come on, you guys help me identify who haven't introduced themselves. What I will say is let's do this in alphabetical order, especially because my name is first alphabetically. So I will start the ball rolling, and then we'll go to Bola, and then as far as who we have here, and all you have to keep me on my P's and Q's with my grammar and thing. It will be Radford and then Roger the Pizza, right? And then we'll go from there, right? So in our email, we said, 1 minute introduction. That's all you have, all right? We'll cut you off. But including that 1 minute introduction, where you grew up, how you've made your living, and where you're living now. You could talk about other things, but include those three things. So, Badru, you've heard a little bit of this already. I grew up in Quarry Village, which is south of Siparia, between Siparia and Santa Flora. And obviously went to school in San Fernando at Presentation College, and this is where I know most of these guys, of course, right? I emigrated to Canada in 1987, I believe it was, after actually doing university in Toronto at Ryerson. In my background is business from that degree, and as far as where I'm living now, I'm still in Canada. I'm in Burlington, Ontario, and I know you were in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, Badru, but Burlington, Ontario is part of the Greater Toronto Area, and it's west of Toronto. And the next stop, if you keep going west, is the city of Hamilton. So I don't know if that helps you in understanding the geography. Yeah. Right? So yeah, so that's my background, and we'll pass it over next to the next alphabetical guy, the Dennison.
Thank you very much, Roger. And Wahid, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Badru, I grew up in Princestown until I was about 14, and then I lived in Faizabad until I was about 30. I left Trinidad when I was 30 and moved to the middle of the United States to work on my PhD. The city is Lincoln, so I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. In terms of work, when I was in Trinidad, I was a high school teacher. I taught at Siparia Senior Comprehensive School, taught A-level physics and O-level maths and chemistry. And then before leaving Trinidad, I went to Presentation College and taught from 90 to 91, that one academic year. I taught A-level physics, upper 6 and lower 6, as well as O-level chemistry, Form 5. And Marshall Montano was in my Form 5 class. And I taught a Form 1 class as well. And so in terms of connections to you, your nephew, Junior Joseph, and his sister Jenny know me very well. And then Ashmead Chot Ali's last child, was about the same age as me. So, but he went to Naparima when I went to Presentation. So he went to the other schooler. Yeah. All right. Next, I will call on Dave.
No, wait, are you going for Dave? Up to Radford. The pizza next.
Oh, D. You're going by last name.
Last name. Yeah.
Before you go, Dennis, I have to add something to your description.
Yes.
I realize that you, or you know, or you're familiar with people who are in my book, the villain. I gotta watch out for you tonight.
But well, here's what I will say. Here's what I'll say in my defense. I am familiar with people on both sides of the aisle. So, you
Good.
know, you're putting Jenny and Junior and them on the other side, right?
No, I'm talking about the other side that you describe Ashmead and so on.
Yeah, well, your father's sister I knew very well.
Right.
I had wine home by her house on many an Eid, right? And
Absolutely.
the first person whose house I ever went by for Eid is on the call tonight. His name is Wahid Majid, and he will introduce himself in a little while.
All right, we'll move over to Radford now. The young and rejuvenated Radford.
Young Radford.
Yeah.
One of 11, including Roger. Okay, I was born in Hermitage. Went to school in Lambert Village. And in the group here, I am the oldest press boy. I went to presentation from 56 to 62 and taught at presentation from 62 to 64 before heading off to UE to do a specialist mathematics. And then I went back to teach at presentation with a little stint at Texaco. I left Trinidad in 1968 and have been a resident of Toronto for the past 53 years. I've been involved in mathematics throughout my career. And as a math teacher, as an administrator, and I've also, in fact, before COVID, I went to the Caribbean to represent the Center for Education, Mathematics and Computing from Waterloo, where I gave lectures to students in Trinidad. I've been doing that since 2002. That's about it so far. The rest
All
of
right.
the journey you'll hear later on.
Very good, Radford. Thank you. And now to the younger DePisa, Mr. Roger DePisa.
Yeah, so Radford is number 2 and I am the second to last. Okay, so we have a lot of people in between. So I, of course, went to presentation as well with all of these guys here. And after that, did the UE thing, went to McGill. After that, came back and I've basically been doing IT consulting on the international level, basically. So I've worked with the UNDP, the IADB, as well as the Commonwealth Secretariat in London, been to, Namibia, Antigua, Guyana, and so on, spent a long time. And then I came up here in 2003, it was, yeah. And I've been teaching at Rogers Alma Mater, Ryerson University, and Centennial College. Good. And that's I'm still doing that actually. I live in Toronto, in Ajax, which is outside of Toronto, on the east end. They live on the west end. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Really.
Thank you, Roger. So next we'll go to Dave Gorohu. We had the false start, but now you can go, Dave.
Thank you very much. As Roger said, my name is Dave Gorohu. I was actually born in St. Margaret's Village, Claxton Bay. And up to the age 11, then I moved over to Marabella. And I went to school with these guys in San Fernando as well. And since leaving school, I taught a little bit at what was called Reform College, and then I ended up in Texaco and the Point Lisa Estate before eventually going back to UE and then moving to Canada in 1990. And we've been here now. And while in Canada, traveled and spent some time as well in Saskatchewan before coming here in California, where, believe it or not, it's 21 years this year. So other than that, what else? So that's about it. And my relationship with Badru is doubles, so that's about it.
All right, thank you, Dave. So Lawrence, I saw that you just joined, but we'll keep you. We're going in alphabetical order by last name, and we're doing the 1-minute introductions. With the very least, include where you grew up, what you did for a living, and where you are now. So the next person that I have on the list here, Wahid Majid, sorry. Sorry, Wahid.
No problem, Mr. Ahmed. There was a problem with my name in school, you know, so it all kind of different. Anyhow, I'm Wahid Majid, and I'm originally from Princestown, St. Cross Road, Princestown. So, of course, we moved to San Fernando in 1967, went to school in Presentation College from 1971. After school, went into my father's business. And then after 1 year, decided to go to England to do my first degree and then my master's degree in management at Imperial College. Then returned in Trinidad. And I've been running my business in Trinidad after having worked for my father for a little while. My father is Abdul Majid, Mr. Badruddin. So you might know the family. It's Abdul Sattar and Abdul Majid, the two brothers from Princestown. Their father was an imam at the mosque.
Abdul Sattar.
I also know. Yeah, so I also know the family that you say is the other side, as it were, because Ashmead and I were in primary school together. And actually, I know him quite well. I know the rest of the brothers, Arabi and the others as well. So I will be on the other side, as you say, Martin, but it's all right. I could understand, and it will be interesting to find out some details as we go along tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. We must have that discussion.
Badru, let me say one more thing about Majid's family. In Princestown, they were known as the Acme family.
Okay.
Right, and Sattar had this Shell gas station.
That's
yes,
correct.
absolutely. I'm aware of that. Yes.
Badru,
Yes.
don't fret them, boy. I backing you up. All right?
It sounds like we're getting outnumbered here on this this family feud that this journalist just recently promoted
Well,
on,
watch it.
on a BBC
Right now,
article.
you have Majid and Ahmad. Don't stick around if Ishmael join.
All right. The next person will go to Mustafa Mohammed, also known as Marlon.
Marlon is my son. Okay, my name is Mustafa Mohammed.
Hold on, Mustafa.
Yes.
I make you out by.
Like those there, Dos Santos.
Yeah.
Those?
Yes, man.
I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people I know on this. Pretty good.
All right. We'll talk later.
All right. Okay. Mustafa Mohammed, born in Hadbargen, Williamsville, grew up, and I have to break the mold here. I went to Naprima, not Presentation. So I graduated A-levels, went worked in technical for about 6 months, teaching math, physics, and chem. And then I got us in tech school for about 2 years before I decided to go to Canada, following my then girlfriend, now my wife. And she is, her parents moved to Toronto. So I went to Toronto, and then we all moved to Edmonton, where I did my degree in electrical engineering, graduated, and came back home for my mom because she was sick, and spent about 10 years in Trinidad, pretty close to 10 years, working for textile. Then went back to Toronto, Edmonton, Toronto, and Minnesota, and now I live in Northern Virginia. Enjoyed my career pretty well in radio communications, basically, doing cell work, working for military and stuff. So I'm about an hour west and south of DC in Northern Virginia. That's it.
Thank you, Mustafa.
Yeah, but most you forget to tell them a reason why you came to Trinidad. For that 10 years you spent here.
Right.
But that's when I met your sister-in-law, and we became.
Oh, yeah, I met.
That's the Sarabai relationship.
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Mustafa, seeing that you're a new face to this group,
Uh-huh.
how was your connection to come into this chat tonight?
Via Dave. Dave
Guru.
invited me because Badru was on, and knowing Badru with the doubles, I wanted to listen to what he had to say.
Very good, very good. Well, nice to know. Well, too bad you're a friend of Dave, but
Yeah, well,
Sarabai boy, Sarabai, not just friend.
Roger, tell Mus what Dave said before he got on the call now.
what? I don't know nothing about that. Don't bring me in your comments.
Mus, Dave said that not everybody passed for their first choice.
Marlon said you were from Hadagan.
Mustafa.
Mustafa.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because I had one uncle, Kenem, who was head teacher of the Irish school, and another one, Radcliffe, head teacher of the government school in Hadagan.
I know Radcliffe.
Right, both of them are my uncles.
Well, he actually taught me.
Right,
Yeah.
very good, man.
Very good, very good. Okay, so the next person we're going to is his name shows up as George, but his real name is Takur Mutu. So, Mr. Mutu.
Hi guys, how's it going?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, born in Mount Stewart Village on the main road to Quintistan, just past Palmyra. Went to school at Erie Village. I think I was one of about, when I passed for Prez, I was only the second person to ever pass for Prez from that school. Went to school with with these guys here, and for a good, however long that was, 7, 8 years, I think, 9 years, 10 years, no, kidding. So after graduating, I actually taught for a year at San Fernando Tech. Taught math, I think, for some high school students. It was mostly to save up money so I can go to UE. Because we family didn't have that money to even send me to UE when it was free. So that kind of helped me out to get to UE. I studied civil engineering. After that, I worked for Trinity Plant for a little bit, went to work for government, then got a scholarship to go to Canada to study my master's. Kind of got the travel bug and all of that. When I went back home to Trinidad in the 80s, it was such a tough time financially in the country that we were looking to get out. I went back to the UK to study for a year in Liverpool, didn't really like living there or what I was studying. So we decided to go to Australia where we lived for 7.5 years before coming back here finally to the US, where I live in West Hampton Beach, New York, out on Long Island right now. So we've been here 22 years, 23 years, which is the longest we ever lived as a family in any one place since we've been married. So love it out here. I work for a school district now, doing not so much engineering, but more facilities management for a school district, and enjoying what I'm doing and looking forward to retiring one of these days.
Thanks, George. I noticed Carl Pino is on, and he's on mute. Carl, are you able to come off mute and introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm unmuted, yes.
All right, go ahead, Carl.
As you said, my name is Carl Pino. I was born and raised in Tabaquite, not Tableland. Went to school in San Fernando. I've been around a bit, a bit of a nomad, working different places in the telecommunication industry. Actually, I'm calling in this program from the BVI. And I was invited here by Mr. Gurahu and Mr. Sipasad Govind. So I am here really to listen and absorb as much as I can from you very people.
Great to have you on board, and good that you have Govind as a friend.
And just to put the relationship a little closer, Carl is either very close to Badal or his family, I'm not sure, Martin or Donald, right, Carl?
In-laws, on the in-law side. But we're close.
Right,
we're
right.
Close.
Well, the reason why I mentioned that is Badal was some of the years in our college, so the guys can relate.
Badal was a presentation boy.
Yeah.
Martin was a classmate.
The bright fella, yeah.
Is Carl Pino related to the Pinos from discotheque in Gasperlo, Marabella there?
Oh my God, I always hear that. Yes. Actually, they are a cousin, and they're also from Tabaquite.
Okay.
That guy, his name was Leonard. Is it Leonard? We knew him as Sonio, but yeah, I think his real name was Leonard Pino.
Okay.
And he owned the disco and that's a lot of stuff down there. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Carl.
Yeah.
So next we're going to.
Welcome.
Thank you. Going to Dr. Poon King.
You're on mute,
You're on
Richard.
mute.
Well,
Yeah, there you go.
you could drop the doctor. But most of these guys I have known since 1971, and a couple of them, Roger De Pisa and Lorenzo Santos, I know from even before that. We went
Boys'
to
school.
army school together, boys' school, as we call it. So I left Pres in 78. Couldn't leave, so I stayed an extra year, left in 79. I did medicine in Jamaica, came back home, worked for, I think, about 3 or 4 years. And then I left in 87, went to New York, spent 5 years to specialize, and I came back home. I've been back home since 1992. Worked in Port of Spain, Mount Hope, and now I'm in private practice and I do kidney disease. And that basically is my work life in a nutshell. And I always say I've been semi-retired since the age of 40 when I left government service, and basically have more control over my professional life. And I'm hoping to retire one day like most of the guys on this chat.
PK, did you mention where you grew up?
Oh, I'm from San Fernando. I mean, I grew up in Laramie, but San Fernando through and through. Born in San Fernando General Hospital, went to San Fernando Boys RC School, where I met Dos and Roger De Pisa. We used to take shortcut through the cemetery to go by my grandmother every lunchtime for lunch. So I know San Fernando in and out.
Very good. Thank you, sir. So then, so we're going to go to Mr. Redhead next, then Govin, and then Dos, and then the gentleman also known as owner, Peter Can. And Peter, just for your information, we're doing a 1-minute introduction, including it where you grew up, what you've been doing for a living, and where you are now. But you can add other things so long as you don't cross a minute. So off to Mr. Redhead now.
Yeah, hi everyone. I am from Princeton, born in Princeton, lived several places and back here now. I was the first out of St. Stephen's Anglican to go to Pres. I got to Pres pretty quickly. And when I taught at St. Stephen's a year, which is where I met Shamsuddin, I went to Mona. I did econ with geography. I actually did the same classes with Pete Rowley for 3 years. I came back, I came into Pres and I taught A-level econ, some geography first, and A-level econ. I taught about 6 of you guys in front of me here, and a whole lot more of who I'm all very proud of. In all sorts of positions in Trinidad, these guys, and I'm very proud. I still do business with many of them. Out of Pres, somebody pulled me into Maritime because they gave me some encyclopedia to sell one Christmas, and I sold about 50. So I ended up in Maritime. I was one of the first degree people to do insurance. I did Capital Life Underwriter, FLMI. I was the most qualified person in the company. I did $1 million round table and all that. First year in insurance, I made about 10 times the amount of money I made last year in teaching. So that's, I was able to have a quite exciting life after that. I am still working. I have I'm an insurance broker, about 20 years now. My other company is an agent at Unit Trust. I'm the longest agent in Unit Trust, along with Gar Thomas, 30-some years. So I think I've joined more people in the Unit Trust than anybody else in Trinidad. So I'm still working. My 2 boys have their own license now for the Unit Trust and insurance brokers. So the business should live on. And I have my first grandchild and I'm happy, right? So I don't have to stop working. I work from home and I try to keep alive. Nice. And I'm very happy to be chatting with you guys, to be invited. And I'm always boasting about all the judges and magistrates and everybody else who I taught. Richard, look at him, Richard and Peter and Alan and everybody, all these guys, Majid, all these guys who I taught in school. Very proud of all these guys.
Without you, them boy, we worthless.
No, they're just good worthless.
Yeah. Is that it, Michael? We're good?
Yes, good day.
All right, thank you. Govin, over to you, sir.
Hi, good night, everyone. I am Govin Sipasad. I'm living close to Badru, Dean. I live at Busy Corner New Grant. I work at the University of the West Indies and as a lecturer there, and also do consulting work across the region, Caribbean region. Yeah, went to school Rio Claro. That's about it. Very short. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then Dos, over to you, sir.
Right. Good night, everyone. I'm Lawrence Dos Santos.
Good night, sir.
Badru. Like PK, you can drop the doctor thing. Right? I didn't study in Jamaica. My degree is from Moruga. So,
Yeah.
right. I got into telecommunications very early. And I remained in that field actually. Worked with Textel at the time, and then which merged with TSTT, Tiraco, to form TSTT. And from there, I left Trinidad and came into Canada and worked with as a network operator with one of the larger glass companies, auto glass companies in Canada. And from there, I got back into telecom with Ericsson Communications from out of Sweden. The experience at Ericsson was really an enjoyable one. It took me all over the US and Canada, and a wide range of experiences, including working with the Department of Defense in the US, and a short job with in the Green Zone in Iraq as well. But not actually in Iraq, based in Plano, but doing work inside there. You know, I have been kind of like semi-retired, right, from the telecommunication industry. Started my own business in digital marketing for different companies at first, but now I'm focusing on what they call the medical vertical, with things like Medispas, plastic surgeons, and those kind of things. I grew up in San Fernando, St. Vincent Street, actually. I was born in San Fernando General Hospital as well. I moved to Marabella just as I passed common entrance. I stayed there until shortly after leaving school in '78. And then we moved down to Palmas. And from there, we came up to Canada to live. And I've been here for about 26 years now.
Hey, thank you, sir. So I think the last but not least is Mr. Peter Khan there for you. If we didn't catch it, Peter, we're doing a 1-minute introduction. You know, where you grew up, how you've made your living, where you are now, and then anything else you want to throw in that 1 minute allotted to you.
Yeah, you just tell me that.
Oh God, well, I can keep track. I didn't know if you reach or not.
It's the age, not the age.
Yeah.
That boy getting old.
All right.
My early life has been full of travels. I was started in Pleasant Valley East on Forest Street, and then I went to the Tobago. And we stayed there for a while, and then I came back to Trinidad, and then in Trinidad, I first went to 11th Street, and then I went down to Rosilac, and then I moved back to San Fernando, which is when I went to boys' school, and then I moved to Golconda Village, where I stayed until I left for Canada. I went to school at U of T, and then I went back home, and I decided to sell doubles in Davie, and that was good for a while, actually. Made a fair bit of money, good friends, but I didn't used to make the channel properly, so. Barrow was good, channel wasn't so hot. But then I decided to go into teaching, and that's what I've been doing since. I taught biology when I was in Trinidad. I taught at Ola Old School Intermediate, which has evolved into Faizabad Anglican Secondary. And then from there, I came to Canada and I started teaching math in Canada. And I've been doing that for the last 24, 25 years. What else?
Where are you in Canada?
I'm in Hamilton, just about 30, 40 minutes out of Toronto. So,
right next to me in Burlington.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. You're good?
I just was feeling slighted because PK talk about Dose and Roger. He didn't mention me at all, and I
Yeah,
just,
but remember you came
don't
in,
need call on the
when it
screen.
was Form 5.
You don't need
or
call on the screen.
standard 4, standard 5.
I used to sit
You
down
don't
there.
need call on the screen.
He wouldn't call me name at all.
You know,
Okay,
boy.
big up boys school.
And they have all kind of excuse, Peter, but what are you gonna do? So I think we got everybody who is here. I saw Dexter Hive name pop up for a second, but then he left. So maybe he'll come back at some point in time. So we'll hear about Badru and from Badru in a little while. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for attending. Welcome to what is our second quote unquote hybrid book club that we're having. We did review one book a couple of months ago, and now we have the pleasure of reviewing Out of the Doubles by Mr. Dean. Want to say special thanks to Dave Guru, even though we give him a hard time. He was the man who initially suggested this book as reading material for our book club, and which we agreed to even before we knew that Badru, that he would reach out, whole face as he is, reach out to Mr. Dean and ask him to come and talk to us. And we are glad that he was so bold-faced, and we are glad that Mr. Dean Badru was so accommodating, and we have him here tonight.
I think it was because Dave was so enthusiastic about the subject, and he's a persuasive guy.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to food, you know.
Oh, okay. No.
No, thank you very much, Dave, for doing that. So we do, like I said, we have what is an unusual benefit and pleasure of having Mr. Dean and Badru. We've done it already. We're referring to you as Badru, and I haven't talked to you. I know you're not standing on any kind of
please call me Badru. And
Yeah.
if you really want to be intimate, call me Bad. That's my nickname.
You and Michael Jackson.
Not only, because I have nieces and nephews who say Uncle Bad.
Cool.
I say, how are you, Uncle Bad? I said, not bad.
Very good. Well, welcome to you. What I'll ask Dennison to do now is just give you a little, and for the new fellows that have joined us today, give us a little oversight on what this group is about.
Okay, thank you very much, Roger. Especially for Badru and Mustafa and Carl. Want you to know that we are a group of gentlemen who started at Presentation College in 1971. We would have all been in Form 5 in 1976. This means that most of us would have been born in 1959 or 1960, Badru. In case you're checking that, you're 14 or 15 years older than us. Yes? Okay, so we went to school from 1971 to 76 if we left in Form 5, or we stayed until 78 if we left as normal people do after 7 years of school. Richard Poon King was different from the rest of us. He stayed on for an extra year to represent us and win a scholarship. Yes? Now, when it comes to this group of fellas, we don't have airs about academics because we've all done pretty well academically. And like your career path to get out of poverty and to be upwardly mobile socially and economically, most of us have followed the best pathway that we could have charted for ourselves using education as a ladder to get from where we were to where we are now. However, I will be remiss if I don't at least mention that a few of the fellas here went to UWI and got first class honors. And so Roger De Pisa is one of them, George Mutu is one of them, Dave Guru is one of them. You know, these fellas made us very proud. And when we left school, we were thought to be one of the least talented groups of fellows. We have proven those critics wrong. And so what I want to end with tonight is to say, look, you have fellas here tonight who were born and bred in Trinidad, who understand what flour and chana and chutney is. And we looking forward with mouth-watering salivation to hear this presentation tonight. Over to you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on mute. Sorry. Thanks, Dennison. I see Dexter Hive has just joined back. Dexter, are you able to unmute? No, doesn't seem so. Okay, we'll catch up with Dexter later. Before I ask Roger De Pisa to allow me to share my screen, I'm just gonna say that just a little housekeeping here. I'm gonna ask Dennison to kind of keep on top of us. He will tell me, you know, boy, keep quiet, let the man talk or whatever, right? And move us along, hopefully, right? And he will do the same to anybody else in the group, including you, probably, Badru, right? So the other thing, I'll ask Roger Pisa and Dave Guru, who was our regular host, to keep an eye on people who might have questions in the chat and people who have a question. And because I'm droning on, I didn't hear them, right? You could use the hand gesture to get their attention, and you guys keep that on for us, please. Okay, so Roger, I guess Roger De Pisa, I should would like to share my screen, sir.
Yeah, you're good to go.
All right, let us see. I don't want that. Okay, maybe I do. Okay, here we go. There. Let's give it a second. Okay, are you guys able to see my screen and the Out of the Doubles kitchen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. All right, I'm gonna minimize you guys on my screen. So again, that I'll definitely need Roger and Dave to interrupt me or Dennison. All right, so yeah.
You could just do speaker view and it will minimize so only one person is seen on your screen at a time.
All right, let's try that.
Yeah, and you could move the photo to the top right hand corner and it will consistently stay there.
All right, great. Yeah, I'm seeing you in that now. Okay, so out of the book is called Out of the Doubles Kitchen by Badru Deen, and of course you guys all know that. And there's a copy of the book cover for when you're ready to buy it. So yeah, there's Dennison with the book there as well. So just to start this off, yeah, this is what I had for lunch today in preparation for this call. I had the doubles, but I had the cousin aloo pie too. Okay, from Radicals in Mississauga. So as far as the agenda goes, we've done one part of it already. Dennis has given the little description of what our group is about. We've also participated in this 1-minute introduction. Thank you to all. And now I'll turn it over to Dave, who will do, not right away, I won't turn it over right away. Let me go through the rest of the agenda. Dave will give an introduction for Mr. Dean, for Badru, I should call you Badru. Badru will do a reading from the book. He has selected a passage and he will read that to us. And then the rest of it is a review and discussion of the slides that I have put together that provides a synopsis of the book. Those slides are organized into 3 main sections: history of doubles, the Dean family life, and Badru's life himself. The other thing I will say is that, I tend to put too much information instead of too little information. So what I will do, I will hit on highlights in the screens, but I'm looking for you guys to read it. I may not say it, but you guys can read it. And if you have questions, please jump in. And Badru has complete permission to jump in at any time and comment, correct, whatever it is that he feels necessary as we go along. All right. So any questions before I turn it over to Dave? All right. Going to Dave now. Dave, over to you.
Thank you very much, Roger, and thanks again, Badru, for reaching out, responding to my request. And as you say, I was a little bit bold-faced, but I figured, in the real world, the worst case scenario is he can say no, right? But I tracked down his contact through Facebook, and we had a good conversation. If I remember rightly, it was very enthusiastic, as he said, and I don't know if part of that was primarily because of my passion for doubles, which, by the way, was the reason why my sister actually gave me the book way back in 2014. I think she gave it to me. That was my 55th birthday. I was just reading the cover here. And just knowing how much I love doubles, she actually bought the book. So I had recommended the book based on the fact, and we'll talk a little more about this later on, but based on the fact that I thought it was an enjoyable read and I could relate to a lot of the things that was in it. And as will come to pass, a lot of us probably thought the book is just about how to make doubles, but you would see it's a lot more than that. I'll read directly what's out there about the author. Badruddin lives in Florida right now with his wife, Grace, who he has been married for 43 years, but probably now it's like 45 or something.
53.
53, look at that. I just don't know what the math is. And
Dave, watch the screen now.
Yeah. All right, before I go on, you had your chance to talk and nobody will tell you nothing. You're jumping in my section here. And you can read the screen?
Rough him up, rough him up.
Yeah, yeah. I look like a Parato or a Barra or something. You beat him up since I come here, man. So he graduated from the University of Manitoba, for those who can't read, Canada, like Denison, Canada, with a BA in economics and sociology and a Bachelor of, what's a BCom with honors in marketing and business administration. He followed a career path in banking with the Royal Bank of Canada, human resource management with the Canadian federal government, Ministry of Transport, and the PSC of the government of Saskatchewan. I figure that's what, the Public Service Corporation?
Yes.
I'm not sure, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Marketing and sales with Philip Morris International and Nestle. Like his father, he eventually became an entrepreneur running his own corporation. All right. I would just like to say, I don't think you became an entrepreneur. I think you were an entrepreneur. You just exposed that skill, as you said. One thing Badru was very hesitant to point out, and I said, look, I want to make sure we mention this. Out of the Doubles Kitchen, the book that we're going to be talking about today was adopted as required reading at Georgia's Southern University for 2 consecutive years in their International Studies degree program under Assistant Professor Christopher Brown. And I think it's worthwhile that we mention that because having read the book, Badru and I actually got into a discussion, and I personally, and I'm sure we might discuss this later again, I personally think this book should be part of the curriculum for literature in Trinidad and Tobago. But we leave that for further on in the discussion. And with that, Badru, thank you very much for accepting the invitation. I hope I didn't have to coerce you too much, but I'm looking forward to this presentation today. And it's over to you. Thank you very much.
Very good, very good. Thanks, Dave. Badru, you might want to comment. You had mentioned in our phone calls about how students from Southern Georgia, the practical side of their studies, what that was.
Yes. But let me first thank Dave for reaching out. He was the catalyst for tonight's program. And Roger and Denison, the 3 guys I met, you guys are really gung-ho, and I like what you do. I like how you think, and I like what you're doing with a group like this. It's very impressive. I also want to thank the participants tonight for joining and for making doubles your priority tonight. Can you imagine that, boy? Educated men sit down and want to talk about doubles, boy. My mother and father are smiling on the other side.
Very good.
Anyhow,
very good.
With the required reading that Georgia, University of Southern Georgia did it for 2 years, they had a program that will have a field trip into the countries that they study, and they were going to Trinidad. And the students were required to read this book, and then they went on a field trip. And because of the book, they actually rescheduled their visit to make sure that they see locations and places that I mentioned in the book. And the story itself appealed to them. Coming from an American background, these kids cannot dream of the situations I described in this book. So as an extension to what Dave said, the students did go to Trinidad to follow up on the descriptions that I wrote about and internalize it even further. And when they were there, they lived on doubles.
Very good. Badru, what I will do, I will stop sharing my screen, and then you will have an opportunity to read the passage that you have chosen to share with us. And if your voice should falter because of getting over that little thing you had, we have about 4 or 5 guys that could jump in and read the passage. All right?
Okay. It's yeah, it was a nasty. Not after Dave's enthusiasm could I say back out for a call. Come on.
All right, over to you, sir. Oops. Looks like you're frozen. Is everybody are you guys seeing Badru as frozen, or am I the only one?
Frozen.
Yes, frozen.
He is
Frozen. Badru, oh, you're back now. You're back now, Badru.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it was a nasty one, but I'm so much better. I'm glad that I could have the conversation with you guys. So I want to, before I do the reading, and the reason why I chose the reading for this group is from the discussions I've been having with first Dave and then Roger in particular, and Dennison. And now tonight, your introductions. We're seeing that education was the key to our success, our successes, all of us. And I want you to imagine 85 years ago, when an illiterate man who did not have the opportunity like we have had, for whatever reason, some of us were poor. One of the guys said, that's fine, but you did end up in university, and that's so admirable, like me, in a sense. Imagine ourselves without that opportunity of education, looking at the faces of your pretty much starving family and wondering, how the hell am I going to support this family? You don't have any education. What are you going to do, man? This is the story I want to contrast with our lives to show that the successes that we are enjoying is only something that my father could have dreamed about when it comes to education itself. So I chose this part of the book to, in a sense, introduce the story, to, in a sense, re-emphasize the content of the character of the man. And it's something that I feel we can, as an educated group, sit and wonder, how the hell, those words will come out to play. So I chose illiteracy on page 19. The well-dressed, handsome, fair-skinned, strong, and affable young specimen of a man that was Mahmudeen was very popular. His popularity boosted his self-esteem and confidence. He felt he could succeed in anything he tried, and equated his charismatic charm to his salesmanship. However, when he tried to convince a shopkeeper to hire him for counter sales, he was unsuccessful. He was unable to read the word evaporated and said it was milk when asked to describe the product. The shopkeeper found him unqualified and did not offer him the position. This illiterate grandson of Indian indentured laborers, with an equally illiterate wife, strapped in poverty, staring at the faces of their hungry extended family, relied on their independent, energetic spirit to overcome necessity. Giving up was not an option. Instead, they gave all to survive those unforgiving circumstances. The agrarian lifestyle always beckoned to Mahmoudin's reserve of physical energy, but he wanted something different, a job that would be more lucrative than the pittance earned for exploiting his physical strength. He sensed that the job he was fantasizing about did not exist, so he would have to create it. His frustration with the cycle of poverty would have to find expression in his creativity. He always defended his illiteracy confidently by saying sense was made before book, and common sense is better than book sense. He was proud of his common sense, which he would remind us was not very common. His life circumstances motivated him to challenge the compelling evidence that literacy is an indispensable means of effective social and economic participation and advancement in life, as we all know and just described, thus contributing to human development and poverty reduction. Mahmoudin's life mission was to prove he could survive without formal education. He believed that despite his illiteracy, he was still free to create and come up with innovative ideas. He sensed that education was not in college degrees and certificates, but in the person, and so he looked for solutions from within. His creativity had a primordial characteristic that did not rely on literacy to manifest itself. In learning how to survive in his environment, he had to concentrate on his skills to overcome the immediate challenges rather than focus on the luxury of an education that did not define his talent and intelligence. Paper qualifications were not necessary for him to learn and improve the quality of his impoverished life. He set out to prove that the common man has the capacity and resourcefulness derived from the wisdom of the villages to succeed despite his circumstances. Illiteracy was not a barrier to his learning. He understood that the lack of education was not a measure of his intelligence. He saw education as a colonial tool used to instill conformity and obedience, neither of which he adhered to. In this respect, Mahmoudin was indeed proudly a recalcitrant Indian. Spending his time on creative problem solving and learning life skills was his main focus. He assimilated a few ideas and made them his life and character, which Vivekananda describes as having more education than any man who has learned by heart a whole library. To Mahmoudin, imagination and resourcefulness were more important than memorization of knowledge contained in books. In his world, sitting and reading a book was not real work because it did not involve physical labor. To sit and read was to be, in Hindi, a jangar chor, literally a thief of other people's labor or strength, or a lazy person depending on the efforts of others. I was called a jangar chor many times when caught reading a book instead of helping out in the family business. When the firstborn twins were found reading comic books, Mahmoudin became suspicious of their contents. He confiscated and burned the comic books in the firesides of the Double's kitchen. My father saw reading as a passive activity of studying someone else's history, which he deemed an idle pursuit. He believed that to work physically was to create actively one's own history. Like Henry Ford, he believed in showing him what you have done instead of telling him what you know. The normal survival mode of village life that relied on physical strength certainly justified this way of thinking. The repercussions of this early conditioning still makes me apprehensive whenever I read a book. Even as I wrote this one, I feel I should be doing something more physically productive, like taking out the garbage. Illiteracy did not deter my parents' ambition to succeed as a husband and wife entrepreneurial team. What mattered was that they had an idea for a potential business that could solve their economic predicament. Mahmoudine had the ability to overcome setbacks that would have sent other young village men back to the cane fields. He knew how to find opportunities where none seemed to exist. He had the ability to recreate. Necessity became their catalyst for invention and creativity. From their prison of poverty, Mahmoudine and Rasulan creatively decided to use their cooking skills, in which they were both competent, from being caregivers to their younger siblings, to alleviate their economic hardship. In being themselves, they knew they had to fit in where they belong. The British, to accomplish their capitalistic objectives, had adopted a system of labor exploitation that first used slaves, then indentured laborers, and finally wage slaves. Mahmoudine refused to be a wage slave. He refused to remain in civility and suffer in silence. With pride, he turned his back on the system, not wanting to be a pawn in the power games of the colonial masters operating through their corporate agents in the sugar estates, you know, like the Tate and Lyles people and so on. He had the determination and commitment to change his paradigm from a wage slave to an entrepreneur. These two subsistence peasants, Mahmoudine and Rasulan, radically and innovatively escaped their social circumstances in a leap of faith and became entrepreneurs in a non-agrarian activity. It was, in a sense, an act of resistance against the economic system of labor exploitation, subservience, and poor living conditions. Thank you.
Thank you,
That's the
Badru.
piece I chose for you guys.
Powerful stuff from someone who could only look up at abject poverty, right?
Yes.
That was the goal. Yeah. Any comments or questions for Badru about what he read?
I'll kick things off with a comment. Badru, you describe your father as uneducated. Sometimes you describe him as illiterate. I would argue that your father was self-educated and not uneducated. He was ambitious. When I look and listen to what you were reading, here are some words that I heard that profile the talents of the man. He had vision, imagination, resourcefulness. He was involved in creative problem solving. I mean, education or no education, he had talent. Yes?
Absolutely, and that's what I wrote. But the word illiteracy comes in the vernacular to say the guy can't read or write.
Right. Okay.
Dennis, in our previous conversations, you had asked about his name, and a thought crossed my mind when I used to see him struggle to sign his name on a piece of paper, and I could have signed my name, and I'm saying, man, the guy can't even sign his name, you know. So, but that's what I described in the character of the man. You know,
and so I will close my comment with a quote from your book, and whoever else wants to jump in, just queue up, right? So that we could make best use of the time. I quote, you said, an optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. And you were quoting, I think, one of the Gandhis from India, yes?
Yes.
And
Indira.
so you were saying that your father was an optimist. And so when we think today about somebody who has what we call psychological capital, right? He had optimism, he was hopeful, he was resilient, he was creative at problem solving. So he had psychological capital, which I'm calling talent.
He knew, in some of the other chapters of the book you will read, he knew how to find hope in the midst of ruin. When you read about the death of the boys, and you'll see that being shown powerfully.
Very good. Any other comments or questions for Badru? No? Okay. Well, what I will do then, I will share my screen.
I think Peter has his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Peter.
One of the things that has fascinated me over the past few years is the values we use.
Come closer to the mic, Peter.
The values we use to construct our reality. And one of the things you said when you were describing your father in a positive way, it seemed that your intention was to describe him in a positive way. And one of the things you said is fair complexion. Am I right? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
So I always find it interesting when we equate beauty with fair skin or light skin.
No, I am definitely aware of that sensitivity, and but the reality on the ground is that at that time, especially, and even now, I mean, there's colorism, man, that happens in our part of the world and anywhere here. Even within families, the fair-skinned ones get preferential treatment. They're popular and things like that. And tonight they were teasing Dave for some reason. I mean, I couldn't get into that conversation but I would take umbrage to that kind of fatigue, because fatigue is a kind of bullying that you internalize over years, and sooner or later something is going to erupt.
Dennis says that to Dave all the time. So
yeah. So he's immune to it. No, but your point is well taken, but it also reflects the society that the man was operating in. He was handsome, he was fair-skinned, he was popular with the girls, he was a woman's man, and they attribute these qualities. And when you read my book, if you have not done so yet already, you will see that I exposed a lot of social truths that were stigmas that people would not want to talk about. And that was one of my missions. That I said it as I saw it. I call it the shot as I saw it. And when talk about, this should be interesting for my related guy to my brother-in-law. Where is he? I can't see him on the screen. But after the book was written, my niece said, "Uncle Bad, I like your book. I love the book." She's a teacher with a master's degree and things like that. She said, "But you embarrassed me in front of my colleagues by describing the domestic violence in my family, with my father beating my mother and things like that." So I said, "Well, I think you're missing an opportunity here, because it took me 50 years to come to accept the shame of being the son of a doubles man. I had to live through that. You would see that in the book. And only by being vulnerable and and describing my personal demons, was I able to relieve myself of that invisible backpack of shame that I carried to be the son of a doubles man. And the only way you could embrace that I describe of your family, that you said, I am embarrassing you in front of your peers, is to go and tell them, tell teachers, the students, that domestic violence is not cool in the 21st century. And you are missing a teaching moment by trying to hide that under the rug. And I'm talking to you from a personal experience. I freed myself, I liberated myself by writing about the shame that I was suppressing all the time. So I told her the same in the same vein, and she understood. She finally understood, and I said, you know, and Marlon, that's Wahid's daughter we're talking about in Tableland, if Marlon can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. And then she's a brilliant teacher and so on. But we have to, the book is educating the village mentality also to accept things that are not acceptable, and some things that are, as a matter of fact, one of the literary critics in Trinidad wrote that she have literature on the Hindu rural family, but none so personal as about the Muslim family. So we as Muslim families would rather put things under the rug or expose social situations that need correcting and move on with the rest of the world. That's the challenge that we have, and I feel that comment within my family was a teaching moment that need to be told. So again, getting back to the fair skin guy and so on, why did we say, and you're correct to say, why do we attribute beauty to fair skin? You know, this is happening in America right now. The movie roles, the best roles are going to the prettiest, fairest complexion. Back in India, Bollywood is made up of all the actors and actresses, the fairest skin, the whitest and whites. Yeah. And if a darker person get a role, is in some subservient role that we see. And people are sensitive to these things and are raising it. Yes, sir.
I think what, you know, we could talk this one out with this group for the rest of the night.
Absolutely. So I think, I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. We do have three questions, and so we'll go to Govind first, and Govind can ask his question of you.
Yes.
I think maybe it's much like what Peter would say from time to time. The British taught us to think in a certain way. And we use a measuring stick called education or literacy or illiteracy. But when you look at the contribution of this guy to the rest of the world, right? He had a aha moment and he cashed in on it. He was able to see that and cash in on it. And that aha moment today built a multi-million-dollar industry. It bringing people out of poverty, poorest class coming out of poverty, helping people with malnutrition. It's the most consumed food and probably the most consumed protein on any morning, and all that kind of thing. So I think the measuring stick, if you look at the other types of measures, you should not wait for 50 years to rationalize that you're a son of a doubles man, but you're a son of a great man. Much like Pineapple Maharaj in Tableland, who was able to breed that variety of pineapple, and Sundar Popo, who was able to create that new music that enriched the world today. Over to you. I'll stop there for now.
All right, we'll go to Larry in the interest of time. So Larry, your comment or question?
I have a couple of comments. First off, You look a lot like your cousin Dewey.
Oh my goodness.
I used to live across from them, so I saw the whole experiences of the doubles making part of it, because your uncle Oscar, when he came to San Fernando, set up shop there. I saw them when they hadn't even moved to gas, but was still firing those huge pots by wood.
Wood burning, yeah, chulhas.
Yeah, yeah, and one car bringing Chana and Bara down to Mustafa down at the bottom of High Street and Dewey at the top of High Street. So it was a wonderful reading the book. What I saw, the main thing was to regain your patrimony, right? Because Choate and his family stole it from you all.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad that you wrote the book.
Absolutely.
And you have regained that because it was important, and important for everyone to know that Mahmouddin was the man who brought this thing out. He made it. Although the Indians may say, well, you know, it looked a lot like Batura. Well, it's not Batura
Yes,
and
it's not
Chana.
Chana. It's not Chana Batura. I tasted it in India in several places.
Yeah, well, I had an employee who was Indian from the Punjab, and I took him for doubles, and he said, this thing real good. I said, is it anything like Batura? He said, no, this is not Batura. This is doubles. This is.
There you go.
So I have the evidence. There are a couple of things that stood out to me that I related to quickly. It was when you talked about leaving for Canada and your rationale. You're choosing between being a visible minority in a white person's country and an invisible minority in my own country. In short, I was choosing my discriminators. And you also had the same discrimination when you had gone back to Trinidad for that short stint. So no matter what happens, there's always those biases that are present. And I'm glad that you aired those out. There were quite a few things I could so relate to your book, because like you, my family was similar, Muslim family, poor, one room growing up. So thank you. I wouldn't want to say I could take up all night talking about it, but thank you very much.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you for those nice comments.
Mustafa had a question, and hopefully you can keep it relatively short, Mustafa, because already
short.
I see that we are not going to make it to the end of my slides.
Okay. I just have a question. I know you have approached the ministry in Trinidad and Tobago for approval of a book for the curriculum. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about the difficulties you face with them, and what did they say, what happened? I mean, make it short, as Ahmed said. So that's what my question.
Well, I got it from both sides. I got it from the UNC and I got it from the PNM. During the UNC, I had a personal friend who was a personal friend of, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to use the name. I hope I don't get into trouble. But anyhow, let's put it the Minister of Education for the UNC. And he said to the minister that I have a friend who wrote a book about doubles, and he would like to talk to you about getting the book in the schools. And he said, I'm not going to introduce doubles to the students in school. That's malnutrition. And this guy's a doctor. So I said, okay. So it was just discarded, filed in the garbage. When Mr. Garcia, Dr. Garcia, I think it is, came as Minister of Education under the PNM, I sent a complete package to him, and I'm still waiting for a reply. So
all right.
we made our attempts. And what I did as a marketing person, I went around the system and publicized my book, got where I wanted to be in so many places in Trinidad, in the public libraries, at the university libraries, on 3 campuses in the Caribbean. They want my manuscript to be archived at the University of the West Indies, which I haven't done yet, but maybe I will. Because sometimes you see when you're getting all this rejection, you want to know, like, why did we choose Canada and not go back and live in a place like Trinidad? It's a similar kind of sentiment that is happening.
Hey, Badru.
Okay.
Just make one connection first. You had told us about an event that you did at the National Academy of Performing Arts, Napa.
Yes. As a matter of fact, that was that was sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism under the UNC government. Excuse me. And it was the largest live audience I've had for my book launches. And it was standing room only at the Napa. And it was well received. Now, I must backtrack a little bit. When I went to Trinidad using all my contacts to say, how do I launch this book in Trinidad? They say, boy, if you launch a book and you get 25 people, you're damn lucky. I said, no, I was trained in marketing and I'm going to go all the way. And I took out ads in the newspaper and the television, whatever, showing it. And it worked. So again, like my father, don't take no for an answer. Get it done. Man.
Okay, so you know what? I think what we need, a portion of the fellows on this call have not read the book or were unable to read the book. And I feel we have to provide context for them. Those of us who read the book understand where this discussion is coming from and these questions. So what I'd like to do is switch back to the presentation. I'll share my screen, but we'll go through it fairly quickly because much of it has been touched on, especially in Badru's passage. So Roger, I'm going to share my screen again. All right, so we had done about the author there, and then Badru read his passage, and now we're going to talk specifically about the history of doubles and why did Badru read this book. And as far as I can tell, one of the things was to record the history of doubles, because this is not recorded anywhere. It's typically by law or by word of mouth, and there are several people who want to usurp the credit for creation of doubles. We talked about Mahmoudine, who is the hero of this book, if you will, hero in some ways. And he was born in 1917, died in 1979 at the age of 62, which, funny enough, is where most of us are thereabouts, 61, 62. He was married to Rasulan Dean, and she was 1920 to 1994. Like we know, most indentured laborers came from Uttar Pradesh, and I'm referring in the text here to Mahmoudine as MD, so I didn't have to write it 100 times. So he was the son of Hazmat Bash and Bombay Bash. Now, Hazmat died in childbirth with one of the other kids, and the last child, of course. And Rasulan, she was the daughter of Majidan Ali. Note the last name Ali. And she was married to Samtali Ali, and she also died in childbirth. So what happened there is that Mahmoudine was the oldest, and here he was born in Piparo, and he faced the Central Range. His name, Badru, you said, was really Imam Uddin, right?
Uddin, yes.
Yes, and even you could have thrown back.
Imam Uddin Baksh actually should have been his full name, but yes.
Yeah.
But you know the reason why names were never recorded properly in Trinidad.
Right, and we'll touch on that. And that name meant leader of the righteous way, which seems so appropriate when you understand how he carried himself. So Mahmoudine took on the parental role. He enhanced his cooking because his father ended up with a cook shop owner in Princestown, and so he developed his cooking through there. He worked for a while as a yard boy with Craigville Sugar Estates, and the pay was $1 a day. I believe you told me, Badru, that was the going rate. It was no negotiation, no nothing. It was always $1 a day, and that was to keep the colonial masters, profitable. He did manage to buy a rally bicycle with his money. Rasulan, who was Ali, like we said, she was the fourth of the 9 children and oldest girl, but mother passed away, and she took on the parental and the cooking role. And of note, of the 9 children, the brothers Askar and Ashraf. And Ashraf, his nickname was Chot, and we've heard his name a few times already, right? And her name meant messenger, which was important because a lot of the history and the story that you have, Badru, is from your mother related them to you, right? And as most women at that time, most Indian women at that time, no formal education, they had nothing to aspire to other than being barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen. Mahmudin hung out with Asghar and Chot in Fairfield. He was in Princestown, but they were in Fairfield, and used to play cricket with them. So he became friends with them. And he noticed Rasulan and that she looked like good wife material. So I think he was going to approach Bombay. And next thing you know, Bombay and Mahmudin's father started.
No, Bombay is Mahmudin's father.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes.
Bombay and Rasulan father.
Yes, yes. They got together, and next thing you know, they married off all 3. 3 children to each other. So Mahmudin and Rasulan got married, and Mahmudin's sister Rosadan and Chot got married on the same day in 1936. And then later on, Asghar and Kasidan. Kasidan was Mahmudin's other sister, and Asghar was Chot's brother. They got married a little later. Very convenient.
That's a lesson in economics 101.
Yes. So we talked about indentureship, and this group is no stranger to indentureship. And we knew that there was institutional and pervasive conditions of exclusion. It wasn't quite slavery, but it was kind of the next closest thing to slavery and exploitation. At the time, the political and economic systems, they supported the privilege and the extravagance of the former colonial masters and their corporate agents. And the whole plantation system was designed to perpetuate poverty. Cheap labor, keep it cheap all the time. The origin of doubles. We know doubles have chana in it, but it's also called chickpeas. We know it's called garbanzo beans, Indian pea, Bengal gram. I never heard of that one, but that was in the book. And the one that is used for doubles, the chana, is from Afghanistan and called Kabuli, after Kabul. And the funny thing is, Canada is, I believe, one of the biggest producers of that now, Mahmudin, Badru.
Yes, Canada is the #1 exporter. As a matter of fact, 100% of doubles consumed in Trinidad, the chana comes from the prairies of Canada.
Yeah, Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Yeah, right. And so Mahmudin used to sell fried chana in contacts, which you guys will remember. He also sold boiled and fried chana, and they call that gugni, right?
Yes.
And boiled curry chana, he used to sell it on paper. They used to have an enamel bowl, and he used to dish it out on a piece of paper, typically. And then they used to sell bara and chutney. They used to do this by cooking it in the chulha on a wood burning stove. And the eureka moment was when they combined the bara with the curry chana and the chutney. And then customers say, well, double up the bara. And that's how the word doubles became. And so doubles was born in and around 1936. It started off, it was food produced by poor people for poor people, i.e. school children who didn't have much money, the vagrants who had less money, and the drunkards outside the rum shops. It was cutters for the drinking. There's a picture of Chulha, and this apparently, Badru, you told me, is from your sister's place. Yes. And all of the photos you see in this were pictures taken from the book. So forgive if they're a little bit wonky because I couldn't get the book to stay flat. And there is Mahmudin and Rasulan cooking on their chulhas, but there's one difference here from what was the original situation with the wood. It was the gas, and that you had a big part to play in that battle.
Absolutely. If I can interject here, just to elaborate on that point, take a look at the chulha that the hot oil is in, and underneath it, they use the same chulha but no wood burning, and that's where we put, I got them to put this gas burner underneath. And at first he resisted it, and he kept the wood burning chulhas as backup in case this thing. And this was the first time that they experienced heat without smoke.
All those years of inhaling that smoke from that firewood,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I wrote about the damages of inhaling that carcinogen over years, and that's exactly what they did. But they threw caution to the wind and made sure that the mission was accomplished.
I don't recall reading it in the book, but did your father die from lung cancer or something?
Congestive heart failure, which is absolutely and definitely shown. I wrote about it in the book as one of the repercussions of continuous wood smoke inhalation.
Yeah.
If I could just comment there, I remember, Badru, you actually identified that as if there's any legacy you can leave towards the development of the doubles would have been the, convincing them to actually use that propane burner.
Yes, if you look at that picture with them frying the barrel, and you see further forward of them, there were what we call the pitch oil tins, and that's where he was still using wood to fire that chulha to boil the chana, because his problem was he thought, and I actually went and reinvented something for him. He when chana boils, it froths and boils over. So he says that's going to go and choke up the burners. So I created a stove with 4 burners and have it in a way that when it boils over, it catches before it ever goes near to the burner. And then he tried it, but he kept that wood burning thing on the front of him there as the backup, man. The guy had no confidence in the technology, and he finally did. He relented, he accepted, and it's history now.
Yeah, yes. Finally accepted that. And this now, this other picture.
Just to add one more thing, Roger. And I don't think, Batu, I don't think it's only a matter of the technology. I just think it's the culture that's associated. Even now, you hear people who do a good cook. We say, boy, you cook a good fireside duck or a good chulha duck or something, and you get good mango wood to burn, right? So
that point is taken. That point is taken, because remember that I described Mahmoudine as a cook who cooks by his senses.
Yes.
Not by measurement and things like that. He cooks by the senses, and the senses, when you smell the smoke and so on, he knows it's flavorful or whatever. You're right. The point is taken. Yes.
And I think there was one more thing in the book that I haven't read it for a while, but the small grain chana. Wasn't there something about when you moved up to Canada and you saw
we have something on
small grain chana?
We have something on that, Dave.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Yeah, we have something on that. The next photo there is Mahmoudine and Rasulan. This is how they took their rest. I think they cooked overnight, right, Badru?
Yes. Just behind his head was where that kitchen you were looking at, where they were frying the barrel. So it has a little wall there, and in the back of it is where all the cooking was happening. The stoves, chulhas were. So they would come here and rest. And sad to say, that's the wooden bunk that he died on.
Oh, wow. And so they had to be cooking overnight to prepare for the morning, right?
Most weekdays from 3 o'clock in the morning, and on Saturday nights from midnight. I would come home from the movies or party or something and feel guilty to go to sleep, because they are now starting the day's labors.
Yeah, it's a hard life. It was a hard life.
Okay.
And this is a picture of Mahmoudine and Rasulan and the twin boys who you'll hear about. And I don't know which one is Habil and which one is Kabil there.
Okay, if I'm looking at the screen, and on the right is Habil and the left is Kabil.
Yeah.
And you see how they were identically dressed, and check out the buckles on the side of the belt, not in the front.
On the side of the belt?
No, on their side, the buckle, they had it tied, like, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But and it's not in the front. So the front was like a plain
Yeah.
plain belt, and the buckles were on the side. That was a style I never used.
Yeah, well, Lawrence Dos Santos does wear his pants like that these days, still these days. Sorry, Lawrence.
Who's your story, man? I'll get you.
Tell me when stable belt, Lauren.
Right, correct.
All right. So we talked about those twins. They were the firstborn, and Mahmudin's last name should have been Bash, but under the colonial powers, Hindu and Muslim marriage were illegitimate. So they didn't give them last names. So Mahmudin didn't have no last name, and the twins didn't have any last name. And Badru talks about illiteracy, about not being able to read and write, but also from a language point of view, they spoke a mixture of Hindi and English. So they refer to it as English, right? Broken speech, as far as the rest of Trinidad was concerned. And the whole Indian registration of names was linguistic chaos, according to Badru. Now, Mahmudin was a sweet man. So he had a outside lady, and her name was Baby Abdul, and he had a child with her, and that child was called Sabil. You know, you see the trend, Habil, Kabil, Sabil, right?
What is interesting to mention is that Sabil was born in January of 1937, and 1 month later the twins were born. So in a matter of a month or so, the guy not only created doubles, but he created triples.
So naturally, Rassalan's pride was hurt, and she pleaded with Mahmudin to move back to Fairfield, where her family was from. That's 2 miles away. So they bought a house for $96, and I forget who the banker is, but they could work out the mortgage on that, right?
Yes. I must add, Roger, it was half of a house.
Oh, that's true.
It was an unfinished house.
That's right. That's right. And
there was a ladder to go from the ground to the floor, like a chicken ladder.
Yeah. Wow.
Was the step. Yeah.
Wow. He also had an aunt, Masitan, who lived there in Fairfield, right?
Yes.
And she had 4 children: Abdul, James and John, who were twins, and George. Now, perhaps Badru, you want to explain about the relationship there with Masitan and the children's part?
Well, other than that, or before I address that point, Masitan was like my mother's adopted mother. That's her aunt. After her mother passed, she would look at Masitan for all solutions to all problems. And she had many problems, as you would have known. So the first place to go when a kid was sick was to Masitan. Masitan was her mother in so many ways. And she was a tyrant, an independent woman who stood up for her rights. She had other children with Indian fathers, and she had these 3 boys with a French Creole named West. And they grew up in an Indian community, and it was not the easiest of lives for them. But Masitan and the children's father, let's put it that way, because they were not married, saw again what we spoke about in the initial introductions and so on, that education would be the best thing for these boys, because the village is kind of, they can't be Indian and they can't be African. They were in the middle. They were handsome. Again, whoever is taking objection to, I will say it again. In the colorism that we experienced, they were preferred. As a matter of fact, in Presentation College, James West told me that they were perceived not as Indians, even though they spoke fluent Hindi, Bhojpuri, and that the priests would embrace him and have lunch with him out of all the other students. So, excuse me.
Yeah.
So, education was their key to success and getting out of that social situation they were in.
And not only was she married, it was a cross-racial, not marriage, but a cross-racial relationship that produced these kids.
Yes, as
But
I said,
these
he was a
kids-
French Creole.
Right, but these kids were out of wedlock. So imagine that, imagine that in a heavily Indian populated village, where that is huge social stigma for both of those things. And she must have been a very strong woman.
Mala, what is interesting though is that those guys got to keep their name, because they were James West and John West and George West.
Yes,
but it's a headmaster who recommended that. They
yeah,
changed it.
one name was Abdul Ghaffur and the other one, I seem to forget at this moment. But the headmaster, Mr. Espine, was the headmaster's name. And he said, you guys don't look like Abdul Ghaffur. Your name is James, and the other one is John, and the other one is George. So that's how they got their names.
Yeah. And our connection with Presentation College was, James ended up winning a scholarship to go to Pres, right?
Yes, absolutely. He became a very successful chartered accountant at the University of Manitoba, my alma mater also, and returned to Trinidad to serve his time for the scholarship that he got. And that's how I got my first job, was because of James West, as I call him, an Indian incognito.
Yeah.
He was taking care of another Indian in his heart. And without him, I could not have walked through the doors of the Red House. I felt, and he facilitated my entry into the civil service, where I met my wife and my whole life changed and everything. So he was a catalyst.
Did any of those brothers have a son named Frank?
Named Frank?
Yeah. The only reason why I'm asking is because there was a Frank West who was in our year who ended up migrating to Canada a while back too. So not sure that if there are any relations, and he fits the kind of profile.
Well, James married a woman from Holland, and he had a few kids with her from out of Manitoba. That's where he met her.
Okay.
And John married someone local. He would like to stay in Princestown. Who knows Princestown? The butcher's daughter. He would always say that. And there, George, I don't know George's children, so it could be one of George's children.
All right, we'll move on to the next slide. And now we come to the mobilization of doubles, taking doubles out on the street. So basically, Mohammedin built a box for his rally bicycle that he bought with his wages from the Craignish estate. And he used to pedal almost 1.5 miles to Princestown. And he sold in the square, which apparently, according to the book, is really a triangle. And the guys from Princestown probably know that, right? And he used to sell doubles for 6 cents for doubles, and they would make $8 a day, and they were rich. They were damn rich at $8 a day. And Badru, I don't know if you could. I know that garam means hot, I think, according to your book.
Yeah,
right?
well, what I describe in the book is his street cry of hot. Well, listen, his pronunciation of hot in English sounded like hot. It's not hot. It's like how they said some of the small island people pronounce. They didn't say hot. He said it sounded like hot. So he would say hot, hot, and repeat it in Hindi. Garam, garam. Garam is hot. So the repetition is an effective tool in getting his marketing appeal out there. So he would say, "Hat they hat garam garam," and people say he's talking about a hat, but it wasn't that. He was saying that what he's selling is hot. But let me digress a little bit here and tell you an observation I made. I did my elementary psychology at university, and I picked up the Pavlovian concept. And this man was exercising a Pavlovian exercise and didn't know it. And let me explain to you. That bulb horn and the bells, when the customers in the village hear that, they start salivating like the Pavlovian dogs are waiting for this box to come. And he would get his sales like that. And that's why accompanied by those melodious bells on two handles, and he would press with his thumbs and the bulb horn. And then he would say, "Hat te hat, garam garam." And there are people who still know that street cry, the older people in the villages and so on.
Yeah, very good. So he moved on from his rally bike and he purchased a freight bike, and that has a different, a better structure for the doubles and all that. And you'll see a picture of it shortly in the next.
Yeah, but before you go to the other slide,
yeah,
I want to point out to you that box that he created, and again, we're talking about the creativity of the man and how he can solve his problems. He saw a freight bike and knows that he needs to put a box in there to protect his wares that he's selling, the doubles, and also must have compartments. It was a compartmentalized box that he built, where it can store paper to wrap and in a quick way, keep his change, have a channel on one side separated down the middle with a piece of wood, with a piece of the box. Then the barrel on the other side wrapped in oil, flour bag fabric to keep them moist and so on.
That was recycled flour bags, right?
Yes. What is of interest is this. The bicycle, and go and notice it again anytime you're in Trinidad. The bicycle box that he built, and built for the bike because it projected beyond the frame to have the paper compartments and so on. That box is still being used, not on bicycles anymore, but in depots or wherever they're selling under a roof. So it became an iconic image of the doubles industry, that China box that he built, the doubles box. So yeah. It's revealing just to see when these things are, you're noticing it and to know where the history came from and the image was so powerful that the vendors will not part with it, you know.
My personal experience, Badru, in 2014, I returned to Trinidad and was specifically for a wedding at the Hilton Hotel, and it was a very what's the word I want? The wedding had a lot, right? And don't they bring out at midnight, to my surprise, the doubles man. And the doubles man had his box. And as guests, when you want your midnight cutters, you just head over to the doubles man. And they were selling it just in the box, just like your father built.
Without a bicycle, of course.
No bicycle. It was on a table.
That's my point. That's
yes,
my point.
Exactly. They maintain the box because that is the de facto doubles dispensary.
Icon.
Yes. yeah. So not only he made stuff for the kitchen too, from leaf springs. He dug out a tree trunk and he made mortar and he made a pestle and he made these things for himself. And the man used to ride on all the rough roads and hills. You know, the roads are flat. So, and the bike heavy, was a strong fella. And this is the bike that the freight bike. With the compartment.
That picture is taken of an actual bike, and that horn that's a horn that he blew when he pressed on, and those that bell No, I had to get that on Amazon to take a picture of it. But that horn, that 3-thing horn, he used that in Sao, and that bicycle in Sao and Port of Spain.
Yeah, and Badru, in presentation at recess time, and what time was that, guys? About 10 o'clock in the morning?
10 o'clock, yeah. Georgie was the barman.
Yeah, and so I didn't know his name, but it was what, 15 minutes of pandemonium, right? Because it was what, 30 fellas around this one barman, and he had to dish out single with pepper, single with plenty pepper, hot, doubles with slight pepper, everything, and he making change, wrapping everything, and 15 minutes and it's done, yeah. And you're trying to feed all these children, right? So yeah, that was my experience remembering from press, right?
Let me point out, Roger, if you go back to that slide that says Dean's doubles, the original Dean's doubles. Now for the aficionados of semantics and the usage of language, my brother, who has a high school education, did that sign. And I had to point out to him that even though we know what he's trying to say, if you say the original Dean's doubles, that does not say that Dean's created doubles. Because you could have an Ali's original double. You can have a X, Y, and Z original doubles. So I pointed that to my brother, but we still kept the sign because of his effort, and but to be concise and to be sticky about the thing, and I am a stickler for words, I like that. That does not say that Dean's created doubles.
But it depends on how you read it, no?
Yeah, if you know the story, then it means that's the original Dean's doubles, because you know Dean. But now, 85 years later, people are questioning because of the misinformation and the desire for some people to rewrite the history. They don't know who Dean's was. So
yeah,
it's just another
yeah.
doubles now.
Yeah, it's a constant battle to find the rightful place in the history, right?
Yeah.
All right. So Mahmudin was an altruistic fellow down to the very end. So this is where, now remember, Askar and Chot married Mahmudin's sisters, right? They used to sell charcoal from animal drawn carts, and they dug up this charcoal in somebody's land until the landowner said, no more, right? So both of them were now unemployed, but Mahmudin came to the rescue. He also had, at the same time, Raslan was pregnant, and so she couldn't do all the work in the kitchen as she did before. So the smart man that Mahmudin was, he got his unemployed brothers-in-laws to come sell doubles too. He gave them, brought them into the business and brought his sisters into the kitchen to help make the doubles. So that was one of the first things where he brought in other people into the family business. He bought them freight bikes. They didn't have to pay it back over time, and he built them boxes for their bikes, just like for him. Askar chose to go to San Fernando, and that's the alleys in San Fernando that we may be more familiar with. But Chot, this was the beginning where Chot said, well, he ain't going to San Fernando. He's staying right in Princestown, even though he would be competing against Mahmudin. So this was an indicator of things to come. Now, after several months, they've obviously learned the tricks of the trade. And then with Mahmudin's blessing, they went out and opened their own doubles business. And he was thinking of his sisters, to make sure that their family could be sustained. And also, I think he was thinking about uncomplicating the arrangements with the two brothers.
Roger, let me interject a point here. It has to be noted that the history that we know and was told to us in oral history, these two brothers of my mother actually sold Dean's Doubles at first out of Dean's Doubles kitchen before they built their own houses. But at that time, there was no sign and nobody could write a sign on a bike saying Dean's Doubles. But the customers started to identify them as their own individual who's selling doubles. But a critical, important point that needs to be known is that they sold Dean's Doubles.
Sorry, you froze. You froze for a second there, Badru. You said they sold Dean's Double and then it froze. Oh, frozen again. Wait for you to come back. Oops.
Gotta do something about internet speed in Virginia, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
or in Miami. He's in Miami.
That's Comcast, man. I can't complain. I don't know.
Yeah. So you were saying that it is important to know that they sold the Dean's Doubles.
Yeah, and also to further prove that point, to show you from historical reporting by Asghar Ali, my uncle in San Fernando. He said Mahmoudine was the natural salesman, and he was training these boys, his brothers-in-law, to become salesmen too. Remember, as you said, they were charcoal vendors, and they would come back with goods in the evening unsold, and Mahmoudine will take their goods, put it back in on his bike, go back to Princeton, sell it, come back, and still pay them. So whose doubles were they selling?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So Mahmoudine's altruism didn't end there. He helped. They went and they bought. I think it was old slave quarters, right, Badru, in Fairfield. They bought the three.
No. It was a house that a couple named Rosie and Gujra, who they were started to build a house. As you know, in Trinidad, you build a piece of the house at a time, and it reached like half of a house, and they sold it.
No, I meant when the three families moved to Happy Hill.
Yeah, well, my parents moved there first.
Yeah.
And then there were two empty. There were 4 lots, with 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Next to them, the east of them on the Naparima Mayaro Road, on that same hill. And that's when they woke on the location of my father's house on that hill first. Then in 1938, 39, they built their houses and launched their Ali's brand with the blessings of my father. He wanted them to succeed, to take care of his sisters.
Right.
You know,
so
there's no dispute in that chronological account of what happened.
Right.
Except for mischief. If you want to make mischief, yes.
Yeah. They did have a kind of a moral non-compete. Not a contract, but again, Choate did not abide by that. This non-compete in Princestown, Choate didn't abide by that.
To the point where, as a matter of fact, one of Choate's son who lives in Orlando, his name is Ali Choate, even though the last name should have been Ali, reminded me of something we know, but I was glad to hear it from him. That when my brother Habil, who sold in Princestown while my father was doing the hard bagging in Monkey Town and all these places around, when my brother finished selling, then Choate would get opportunities to sell. So that used to really piss him off. And they ended up fighting and ended up in police custody, as I reported in the book.
That's
Your
right.
uncle beating up on the nephew. The boy was popular. People wanted, there's doubles and that competition carried on to this day. And there's so much we could talk about.
That's right. Mahmoudine, when Choate was competing with him in Brazilstown, he decided to expand his business to Rio Claro, St. Madeleine, and I think some other place that was mentioned in the book. So he kind of expanded out rather than compete hard against Choate and actually, you know, put his sister in a
Exactly.
rough position, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So as we talk, this is oral history, and this stuff is blurred. But this, when Badru has done his research and talked to parents, uncles, siblings, cousins, community elders, local researchers have identified that Princestown, yes, was the beginning of doubles, but it's a little bit gray as to identifying who the actual pioneer, the first one was, and that is where the gray area right now, where there's this you know, tension between.
Well, Roger, no, I think I have to point out that some people are creating a gray area by questioning the history or wanting to rewrite it. But the chronology does not say otherwise from what is being told in this book. And to say there's a gray area is
to give it credit when it's not due.
Exactly correct.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
So I would not go in that direction of description of saying a gray area. If it's a gray area, I'm showing video and audio testimonials from contemporaries and elders in the family. And a guy was saying, as far as I am concerned, well, this is one of Rasulan's cousin, who is actually the Ali's cousin, is also Masitan's son, the woman we talk about, the aunt, with the three boys. And he said, when it comes to taking doubles to market, no one except Mahmoudine with no partners. Those were his actual words. I have that on videotape.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I have a brother of Choate and Asgar who lived with my mother, because that's a younger brother. And he said, before he passed, I was lucky to videotape him together with Mustafa of Asgar's family, who, by the way, when we speak of Ali's doubles and the popularity that Ali's doubles hold in Trinidad, it is Mustafa who created that. We should never forget that. And Mustafa stood up and made that declaration. It was his uncle all the time, and agreed with the other uncle who called Choate a liar on video.
Yeah. So that's and I have a few of those quotes in a slide coming up next. Actually in the same slide here to your point, Badru. So Mustafa, there's Mustafa. He's Asgar's son. He's the largest volume seller. No, he's the largest volume seller of what in Trinidad?
He was the largest doubles operator in Trinidad, because he had several outlets in Port of Spain, San Fernando, Marabella, you name it, he was around.
Right.
And he had a beautiful common sense approach. He said, boy, when it's raining, put out the more spoutings you put out, the more water you're going to catch.
Yeah.
So he said it's raining money with people want to buy doubles. So he decided to go and open so many outlets, and he became the largest purveyor of doubles. But he has passed now, and the dynamics have changed. You know.
Right. So he stated that on TV that Mahmoudine started the business and brought his father into the business along with his uncle.
From a documentary done by Al Ramsawak, for those who are familiar with that guy who created this documentary Out of the Sugar Plantations, I think it was the title.
Right.
And Mustafa stood proudly and said it was my Uncle Dean who created it and brought my father and his younger brother into the Ali's, into the business.
Right. And the same thing with Doy.
Doy said I had him on video in his beach house in Mayaro, and I said, Doy, what do you know about the origin of doubles? He said, boy, as far as I know, my father told me, my mother told me, Mahmoudine wanted to take care of his two sisters. So he brought his brothers-in-law, their husbands, into the business. And that's how it is. So when we're getting it from the horse's mouth, where's the gray area? For example, there cannot be a gray area when people are saying, well, it was the Alis who created it. Well, if you say no, it's not the Alis. And Choate is getting a free ride from the popularity of Mustafa Ali's doubles.
Yes.
They didn't create a market.
Yeah.
They have not created a market yet. Princestown, they inherited from us that Mahmoudine started. They went to Port of Spain after my father died. They would come to San Juan after my other brother died. And when my brother in Winnipeg sold his operation where he was selling doubles, a granddaughter of Choate was selling doubles within walking distance of that restaurant. So what we are seeing is that the deans are opening up markets and they're just walking in and enjoying the benefits of that initial effort.
Right.
And claiming, because you're selling more now than the deans, because you know it's a big industry now.
Yeah.
You're forgetting where the origin is, and that's a selective memory.
Yeah. To add to that, these just little clips that were referenced in your book. Abdul Aziz, Masitan Son said it was Mahmoudine and Mahmoudine alone who did it. James West says there's no question it was the originator was Mahmoudine. Sonny Mohammed, a neighbor, said no one could say anyone but Mahmoudine started doubles in Princeton. And in your book, he sounded quite belligerent about it. He wanted like
absolutely. They get annoyed. They get annoyed when they hear a false claim. And I said, but I know the truth. I know the truth about this thing.
Yeah.
And it says nobody could. A guy said, Sonny Mohammed said, nobody could tell me that.
Yeah.
That is not.
And also a name that we would know, Kamaluddin Mohammed, minister. He was the head of WHO at one point, wasn't he?
Yes,
the World Health Organization, right?
Yes.
I remember that. And
held several ministries in Trinidad under the PNM government. Yes.
Right. And he said he was introduced to Mahmoudine in 1940, and he was told that Mahmoudine was the creator of doubles.
Yes. I have him on videotape saying that.
Yeah. And then, however, on the other side, Choate Ali on TV's Cross Country, which apparently is a local program. I don't know if it still goes on in Trinidad.
No, it doesn't go on now, but that was the very first program that he made the claim in public, and that's what started my interest in writing, correcting the error.
And one of the main points that you used to refute that is he said, "Listen, I started it in my house."
Yes.
In
1936. In 1936, as a matter of fact, there is a picture of him on the freight bike, and it says Ali's Doubles and established 1936. I mean, remember these guys are illiterate, and I don't know who told them there's 1936. I mean, maybe he was starting to sell in 1936 for what it was Dean's Doubles he was selling.
Excuse me a moment. Wasn't Cross Country done by Ralph Marach?
No, there was a girl, and I'm trying to remember her name.
Okay.
An Indian girl who did it.
Okay.
But Ralph Moran did a similar program, if not carrying the same name, Cross Country. I remember.
Know Your Country.
This
Know
was
Your Country. Oh, okay.
Yeah, this was AVM TV on up at Mova. So we responded at AVM. My brother and I responded to that because people keep calling us and say, "Hey, we heard your uncle just say that he invented doubles, and he said he learned it from his father and all this kind of nonsense." And the strange thing was he made that claim on television only after my father passed.
Yeah.
You know, so come on.
Yeah. And then the last thing that we referenced there in 2009, 30 years after Mahmoudine was the Choate side of the family was accepting posthumous awards for creating doubles, which again is a fallacy, and it doesn't help when they don't correct this fallacy, right?
So who granted this award anyway? They didn't do enough sufficient research to verify.
Well, throughout my my research and writing this book, I realized that there are lazy journalists everywhere, and in Trinidad more so, who let's look at it this way. Remember, we left Fairfield, Princeton, after the two boys died, we basically abandoned the homestead, left the house and went to Sao, where my father was already developing that market. And I'm seeing.
So the guys who haven't read the book haven't realized that your twin brother has passed away, and we have something to talk about.
Right. So now we're talking about the lazy journalist. So put yourself in this situation. So you're a journalist. You go. You got a hint that doubles were created in Princeton. So you go to Princeton and find the oldest family that are selling doubles, and you find Ali's, Chot Ali's. So you talk to them, and instead of them standing up and proclaiming the truth like Mustafa did, they usurped their credit and said they created it. And the timeline does not justify that. It does not. It absolutely doesn't. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no gray areas. As far as people who have read the book, heard the testimonials, and I have the video testimonials that I will release as the final trump card in this story, to tell the story of what else do you need to know. You just cannot make a claim like Arabi did in a BBC article that was written by this girl from New York, journalist, and got quite a bit of publicity. After all the testimonials and proofs that I produced and the chronology of the events that happened, you cannot come out of the blues and just make a statement that, no, it was my grandfather who created it. Give me some substance. Give me some, tell me how did he create it? Who, when? Who knows that other than you saying that or your family? So that evidence was not there.
Yeah.
And that makes it suspect. And not only suspect, it's untrue. We know it's untrue.
Yeah. So to tie a bow on this chapter of it, there's a quote from Indira Gandhi that you referenced in the book. And you said there are two types of people, those who create, or Indira Gandhi said this, those who create and those who take credit for what was created. It is better to be among the former because there's too much competition for the latter.
Mm-hmm. I thought that said it exactly. It described the situation.
Yeah. And to put one more last piece on this piece here, here's a photo from the book. And Mahmoudine, it's not Mahmoudine, Badru, all yours.
Yeah. Okay, I chose this picture from the book. The two Ali brothers flank the pictures, right and left. On the right is Chot Ali, on the left is Asghar. At the back of the one seated in the front is my father, and at his back is his younger brother. I asked Roger, look at that picture and tell me who is the leader in that group. And it was obvious, who would surround the seated guy. And he was the leader, not only of his religion, as the name suggests, but of that family. He was the leader of that family. He was as a matter of fact, James West from Montreal, he's now about 84 years old or so, said Mahmoudine brought a trade to the village that did not know about a trade. They know about planting sugarcane, planting produce, and taking it to market or taking it to the factory in St. Madeleine. Mahmoudine brought a different aspect of doing business that was not agricultural, not agrarian. So, for what it's worth, to my dying day, I shall be fighting to give credit where credit was due, especially when, excuse me, man, as you know, I'm fighting this thing. Especially when I know it was illiterate people who sent me to school to get an education. And I want to use my education to give them the credit that is due to them, and we'll fight to the last day for that.
Right. Yeah,
That's
very good.
promise.
Very good.
Well, you have a whole posse now behind you.
Exactly. we are evangelists now for this truth to be spread.
Wow.
In fact, there's a Ali's down on Queen Street in Toronto, so I go down there tomorrow.
But also, I personally know Vashti Achaiva, and I'm going to call her and make
That's the
sure that
woman.
she corrects that documentary.
That's the woman name. Who's speaking? Who knows that name?
Lawrence Dos Santos, me.
Okay, yes. It was Vashti who did the program, and she, as a matter of fact, did a follow-up with me and my brother, the interview at AVM Studios, to contradict that. She did it. However, what I'm finding out with journalists and TV people and so on, they leave it up to they construct the conversation and leave it up to the reader or the viewer you decide. And that's not the point I am proving. I'm showing something more convincing than just leaving it to the reader or the viewer to say, well, you guys take a pick. Is it Ali or is it Double or Deans?
So let me interrupt here, fellas and Bad. I didn't plan it this way, but this is the end of a section of the presentation, and it is 10 o'clock at night. So what I would suggest, if it's okay with you guys, there is still a lot of story left about the Dean family and their struggles. You have a hint about it, about the death of the twins, and that was one of the most traumatic things that happened to this family. There were other things too, and other things about Indian culture and Indian life in the 1940s and 50s that I think you guys will find it interesting. So if it's okay with everybody, including Badru, I would suggest we end the presentation part of this discussion now, and we hold the remaining sections. If we can have Badru back another night, if we can find a place in the schedule, I'll look to Dennis for that. It doesn't mean that we'll end the conversation tonight. I would like to just leave it open, and you guys, for as long as you want to stick around, as long as Badru is able to stick around, ask questions and various things. So let me stop sharing my screen, and I will look to people like Dennis. You are on mute and you're off screen. But what do you guys think about that? Would you be willing to come back and hear some more?
Yeah, what's planned for next week? Because this is a conversation, I think, that requires some continuity. So it'll be nice if we could have it next week, providing Mr. Dean is free and is willing to come back,
No, I am all in favor of it because, as I just described, it's my life's passion now. I'm retired, and I was not a writer. I'm a businessman, and I felt compelled to put in words, in writing, this truth that must be told. So I take all opportunities to promote the truth.
I support the move for a reason other than that, Badru. The other aspects of the book, there are other things in the book that I really like part of the life, like your wedding ceremony and your so-called fight at the wedding. No wedding,
the cake fight,
right?
Yes.
So I support that. On the downside, though, I am traveling next week Wednesday, and I probably join a little late, but I think I have enough of my representatives there to take it on. So I'm in full support. If I can't remember, DP, do you remember what we have planned for next week?
No, I don't, unfortunately.
I'm gonna try to look
We have this presentation next week.
Which one?
We have the continuation of this next week.
When you're speaking of continuation, I must let you know that in Ottawa, at the Carleton University radio station, it was broadcast through the university on third world writers and so on. So it reached a global thing. They did a 5-part series on my book because they couldn't cover it in one.
So I said we should plan for like 3-4 weeks.
The next time we have to have a drink or something in our hands.
No. Hot doubles, man. Hot doubles.
But here what? I will buy doubles for everybody. I have it right here.
Right.
I'm just looking, fellas. August 25th is next week, and we have Curtis Archie. He's presenting something on interesting places. There is
Hey, Mother,
yeah,
just go ahead and make the move.
yeah. So
We
we'll
haven't
come
seen
back
Curtis
and
in a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will talk with Curtis and we'll reschedule.
okay. Oh, where are you guys now? I have to find you back. Okay, there we go. All right. So Badru, next week, August 25th, same time, same place, same bat channel. What do you think?
Okay. Sounds good.
But
Yes,
what you
Larry.
talking about? What you talking about? Bad channel? I don't understand.
Bat.
Bat channel, bat
Oh,
channel.
bat.
Not bad. Maybe
You're
it's bad,
hearing
but,
going, Roger. You're hearing going.
Yeah,
All that
yeah,
sound thing in your
yeah.
ears and you can't hear.
Roger,
No,
Roger,
he-
Larry
Roger's
wants to say
hearing is
something.
not going. He hearing in Canadian.
yeah.
That too. That too. That too.
I do have an issue with next week, fellas, but maybe you could still continue on. I'm just looking at my calendar to make sure. Yeah, I am due for a procedure in the morning, and I don't. It's supposed to be they'll put me out and everything, and it would be 3 to 4 hours. So I don't think I'll be in any position to be present and part of it. But then maybe Badru, you've seen the presentation. Maybe you could speak to it as you go along, or Dennis, maybe we could work on something. I don't know. But Dave, you said you're not going to be around. Right?
I probably would join a little late, but
Ahmad,
Yo.
this how we operate in this group. One
Yeah.
from 10 leaves north, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
Oh boy.
Okay, Mother, that is non-negotiable. You construct this. You are the leader of this session. We're not doing this session without you.
Correct.
Great.
all right. The other thing then, if we look at that, I looked up, Dennis, your schedule. Therefore, where was it? Schedule. Chat with experts. We had August 18th. Well, we switched. That was switched. So August 25th was Curtis. September 1st is Healthy Living with Orson, right? September 8th was video clips, which was I was going to host, but we could certainly plug it in there if it's not too far out.
Yeah, why don't you switch with Austin? The September things. So we come back in 2 weeks rather than in 3 or 4.
Okay, hold on. Mother is working with the second week of each month. Let him switch with himself.
So that would be September the 8th.
Yeah, because Orson is available on the 1st. Let him do his stuff on the 1st, right?
Okay, well, yeah, so it will be 3 weeks. But I think the topic could hold up. I think what we are going into now is a whole another thing and of very, very much interest that Badru has in his book.
Yeah, and Badru, I picked 2 readings that I would like to do on your part of the book, on your memoirs. So, we will have things to do. Larry, make your input now.
2 things. The further away we push this from today, there's going to be a significant loss in momentum. I agree with you, Dennis. There are a lot of parts of Badru's experiences that I really want to touch on, and a lot of it resonates with me. So I wanted to make that point. However, the other thing is, why don't we nominate Mahmoudine for a national award? That would put this whole thing to rest about who actually invented doubles.
Let me respond to that. Larry, last year was the second time we submitted applications for a national award. Now, last year, they just canceled the award ceremony because of COVID. This year, we never heard anything about it. And but prior to that, we did not get chosen to be in the lineup at all. and I have been pushing for that. But this year, well, should I say, the last application we made, I used some really powerful stuff. Dr. Anthony Bryan was one of the nominators. Ambassador Chandra Singh was the applicant on behalf of my parents, and no response. And I was a little worried with the controversy that happened in Trinidad recently when the Prime Minister made a statement that doubles lovers attacked him on, when he said there's nothing special about doubles. What are you guys fussing about doubles, or something to that effect? And the people came down on him for that and said, well, doubles is doing more for the country right now than current administration and whatever through COVID. So in light of that conflict, I'm saying, oh my God, we're not going to get an award this year. And I wrote about that.
What is behind that statement by the Prime Minister?
Sorry?
Do you know what's the history behind that? What is the context?
I think the people were complaining about reopening of food stands and restaurants in this lockdown COVID situation. And then they said the people are clamoring for doubles. You say, I don't see what's so special about doubles. Something in that context, I think, happened.
I could add something here, and maybe one Trinidadians. PK, I think you could probably jump in here, but I think it's centered around the chicken fast food outlets,
yes,
and specifically KFCs and places like that were allowed to open that were owned by the 1%ers, and doubles, which is really the street entrepreneur. Those places were shut down and not allowed, and the police took it out on the doubles vendors.
The doubles man, yes.
While they allowed the other places to remain open. And of course, your commissioner of police say he never ate doubles in his life.
Larry? They serve doubles in Tetron. What's his story? When he was a soldier.
He never eat doubles in his life. That's what he said.
Well, he is supposed to be commissioner of police in Trinidad.
You're not qualified. No.
That one's you. That one's you.
Yeah, what Larry said, there's a certain amount of truth to it in that doubles is a food as well as is a lifestyle. People go to the doubles person at a specific time every day. And if I go to buy a doubles, which is very rare, but he come in there every day, the doubles man will tell me, hold on, and he buying one, he buying two before he comes to me, because that's his regular. And I think the Prime Minister is not really attuned to reality on the street and how society works. And he was rather, how should I say, flippant in how he addressed that issue, because they were trying to regulate how people will mill around the doubles man. And that was always a problem. And they gave how should I say, certain concessions to takeout restaurants, but they didn't give it to the street vendors. And he basically was saying, well, what's the problem? I don't see a problem because it doesn't relate to him. So there was a certain lack of sensitivity on his part, and a sizable section of the population eats doubles, but he's not sensitive to their perception as to what he said. So Mr. Dean,
that's interesting. Those comments are interesting, because I have pictures on my Facebook page that I posted of both Prime Minister Keith Rowley and Kamala Persad-Bissessar. When they were in the opposition and campaigning on the streets, they took pictures eating doubles. But when you get elected, you forget about it.
Yeah. It's all a matter of lack of sensitivity to your fellow man.
And then that too could have just been a one-off, Right? So
I want to mention something.
I want to give him a little bit of credit because I don't think he's that dense that he don't know about doubles. I think it maybe was a question of how can we control the crowd around there in a COVID-19 thing.
Yes,
you know.
yes, you
had a contribution.
No, you want to control the crowd, but you have to get people to understand and to buy in as to what you want them to do. And therein, I think the problem was, you want to get people to buy in. That's how you go about it.
Yeah, Wahid had a contribution before he.
Kind of agreeing with King there, but also he normally puts his foot in his mouth with respect to he just talks off the cuff just like that, right?
Yeah.
And the consequences he really doesn't care. But I would go back to this thing about nominating for a national recognition. We as a group have to do it. You don't, these people, they don't see about that. He just, I mean, he would just say, well, I have to go and shake this person's hand because I give him an award. But he has nothing to do with that. And therefore, as a group, even if they don't do it this year, I would still recommend we do it.
No, I'm sorry,
another
but
year, and do it another year until they accept it. I have known people who have been nominated for national awards for 12 years consecutively. And then they get fed up, they realize this person is someone of import that we didn't really consider.
But there had to be a committee who would go through the various things.
There is.
And great.
And still is people, is a judgment call they make, right? Because there's only so many they can give. And like everything else. But the Prime Minister has nothing to do with who gets an award. So I would suggest as a group, just a letter. And after discussions on, so we decide X, Y, and Z. And that shouldn't be a problem.
Hey, Dos.
So,
Dos, let me just translate what Wahid's saying now. There is a committee, just like you saying, that will pick the people who get the awards, and the Prime Minister not on that committee. Let me leave it there.
I wasn't objecting to that. I agree.
And let me translate further what Wahid said. Wahid just volunteered to lead this committee on this group's behalf. Right,
I have plenty to say on this subject, but I listen because I haven't read the book. So I'm just listening. I'm glad that Dennison asked me to join tonight because I'm very busy with some other things. But I was glad for the opportunity. And now I'll take the time to go and look for the book and read it because Princess Song is my life. I mean, anything to do with Princess Song I want to know about. And as I could just see it in passing all my years. I mean, we're 61, going on 62 now. I have known the Chotes from there. I don't know the Dean name at all. But we remember another name. I mean, in terms of doubles, and all the fellas talking about doubles in presentation. Talk to me about that fella in presentation and doubles now. But before that, in grad school was Singh from St. Cross Road.
Yes.
To come with the Land Rover, and people would know him.
Yeah.
Right. And that was something in my mind. I mean, those were the ones who were able to market it because they went out to the schools, right? And
but some
Fernando Ali's is the ones we know for everyone else who were king, not Princess Song. I know a Princess Song Chota, and I used to sell doubles by my uncle's gas station across the road. So I know where they stood too, and others who would have gone there. But as I say, in my mind, this was never something, but I heard about this controversy, and I would really like to look into it and make sure that it is corrected and give the person their due.
Before
I
anybody
understand the story, and I see everything. It fits the thing. I mean, we come from a similar family with a similar background. I mean, my grandparents were indentured laborers, and my father and his brother, they were the ones who started business in Princess Song, and then one decided to go to San Fernando, the other one stayed Princess Song. But they all did what they had to do to survive. So I could understand exactly what is going on, but I would need to read some more. I see you guys have read. I'm glad to see that Mr. Ahmad has taken such a keen interest in this subject. I could understand Dave's role in all of this. He's studying the doubles. He's going to eat to get some practical experience going forward. And the rest I could understand too. So yes.
Let me I want the conversation to continue, of course, but let me interrupt here. Dennison and I just had a conversation offline, and what we are going to decide to do is we will hold this next part of the discussion next week, Wednesday. I will do my best if I am feeling well enough to be present during the call, but if not, Dennison, with or without me there, Dennison will lead the role with the slides. He's seen the other slides. He thinks it's laid out in a way that he understands where it's coming from. He's read the book. And I'm sure Badru will fill in details and stuff. So if Badru, just to confirm, you are good for next week, Wednesday, the 25th of August?
Yes, I think that's doable.
Okay, thanks. And we'll double your pay, eh?
Right.
Double.
Coming out of your pocket too, eh?
Yeah.
You'll have to pay me in the historical terms. It was 6 cents for a double, so we'll have to double up on that, you know.
We can manage that. So we on for next week. So let me go back and just let me comment on Wahid there. Yes, I have taken a great interest in this book, and I'm very glad because I feel I know this book inside out now. But I have to thank Mr. Guru up there, because Mr. Guru said, well, we should read this book, boy, and we should present this book. But wait now, I'm going on vacation. So surprise me now when you're done, right?
And actually, I must say I'm pleasantly surprised.
Oh, thank you.
You wanted me to take a look at the presentation, and I said, no, I read the book already. I would be Mus left, but I was spending the 2 weeks by Mustafa, Mus there. And I said, you know what, I want it to be whatever it is you're presenting. And I must commend you on the very detailed and comprehensive presentation you've done there. So I like being surprised like that, and great job.
Let me add to Dave's comment. When I saw the PowerPoint presentation that Roger did, I said, well, you did my work for me. I don't have anything to do now. I said, what am I going to talk about? I said, well, okay, at least let me read this passage. And then, but what he did was basically what I would have to do to summarize my book to a listening audience. And he did an amazing job. And he, as he rightly said, he knows the book inside out now. Probably better than me now, because I'm
actually, I think it's because he went to presentation.
Gentlemen, that's one thing I have to ask Badruddin. You had seemed to have some reservation to Majid Wahid's suggestion that we nominate you again. You seem to have some reservation to that.
No, it wasn't that actually. And now I'm trying to remember what, because he had a long speech there just now.
Yes.
And I'm trying to, I didn't take a note of it. I started coughing and all this.
Okay.
But he mentioned something that probably elicited that expression on my face. That
it sounded like you had tried, and it you've been rebuffed.
Unsuccessful thus far.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Badru, what I heard Wahid say that I want to repeat is that he knows of at least one person who's been nominated for 12 consecutive years.
Yes, that was point well taken.
Yeah. So I think that whether you get it or not, you have to keep that nomination process going, because the history has to be the correct history, right?
Well, the Princeton Regional Corporation went ahead and acknowledged and awarded a certificate for the proud citizen of Princeton who created doubles. Those were my parents. So they took the step ahead of the national authorities who should have done it.
Larry, let Larry have it. He's been wanting to ask a question.
Yeah. From a marketing perspective, serializing some aspects of the book, especially your father's contribution to giving us this gift of doubles, because that's the only thing I could call it, the gift of doubles, will create some momentum in the minds of the people who are making the choices about the national award. So around the time that you submit it, if we could get that going, not only on our current media, but really on social media itself too, because like I belong to a Facebook page called Sando People, and to put out something that and promote your book too on it, I could do that. and people would, the buzz would start. So creating that buzz, right? And then you're seeing this physical application that you have to consider to award somebody. So this person is worthy of the award. This person has made the #1 street food in Trinidad, has created and was a self-made entrepreneur, has created an avenue for many people to lift themselves up by their bootstraps. You know, it's how you really sell the story. And maybe getting the newspapers again to do something. And you know, newspaper people, they are very lazy, as you said. You have to write it for them and give it to them.
Absolutely. Exactly. I found that many times. And the surprising thing is you will go through and write an article with them and they publish it. And a few months down the road, somebody else says something and they go and they publish it again and contradict what was happening. So now you confuse the population. The population don't know, they're not consistent. And I said they're lazy for that reason in the research. It takes time to research it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if we're all on board, we could do this.
And don't forget, well, not that you read the book, but for others, Badru has has made a career in marketing too. So he has marketing skills that you know he's applied to this book as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, when I was growing up, one of the teasing names of other than China Boy or China Doubles, they call it in the names, belittling in school. I'm walking down a pretty girl from up in our secondary down to the Quasi, got off my bike and walking this beautiful girl from Santa Cruz. And one of my competitors for this girl called me China Green. So I said, what does it mean? But he went to the seed of my discomfort by calling me China Greens.
Yeah.
And in my marketing thought process, I said, you know what? What do you see on the cover of my book?
China
Grains of China.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grains of China. You call me China Greens? Here it is. Read about it.
China Boy, China Green.
Yeah.
Raja, Mara, hopefully you make it next week. I know if Dennis will be able to handle this load.
I commend to Hamilton General, Peter, to get that procedure.
That's true?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me I'm gonna meet you outside.
We'll bring some doubles now.
All right.
Make sure I go and visit him outside.
What date and what time? Peter, I'm meeting you outside too.
It's not Brampton General, boy. It's Hamilton General.
I come in.
Anyway, gentlemen, it's 10:25.
Yeah, I think
So-
yeah. Let's wrap up. Badru, thank you so much for joining us. The fellas, obviously, I think there's been great interest and it's a good story, and there's much more to come. The next part is the part that you know. I read the book. I reached to the end, this part about how so many testimonials, and then I said, well, what's the rest of the book about? And then I read the rest of the book, and that, I mean, the vulnerability that you have exposed yourself to in that book and about the Indian culture, amazing. So look forward to talking about that. You're on mute, sir.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Badru.
Good presentation, guys. I gotta go.
Yeah, I go ahead.
Okay, Radford.
Have a
See
good
you.
I'm
week.
here, Radford.
Have a good week.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll
Thank
talk.
you.
Good night.
Thank you. Thanks, Mara.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
All right. I guess that
Yes,
is it,
Raja. All the
fellas.
best with your procedure. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you
Good night,
again,
Raja.
Badru. Thanks
Raja.
very much.
Thank you, guys.
Take
Take care.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.